When the most beautiful rose of the year bloomed, the gods bore witness to a miracle. From its petals emerged a child, Ariel. Some admired her beauty, others were in awe of the divine power that radiated from her. She was the one meant to bring an end to the eternal reign of Acheron and rise as the new king. That was 200 years ago. Now, as Ariel walked through the grand halls of the celestial palace, her steps were heavy, her mood sour. The party was over. Another tiresome gathering where the gods whispered behind her back, watching her, judging her. 2 small angels fluttered beside her, their voices annoyingly cheerful. "Lady Ariel, how was the party this time?" one asked eagerly. "I'm sure everyone was surprised, right?" "Of course, it's only natural. Lady Ariel has made remarkable progress." Ariel clenched her jaw, her patience running thin. They just wouldn't stop. She abruptly turned to them, her eyes flashing with irritation. "Shut up, you noisy little brats." The angels instantly recoiled. "Sorry," they stammered before hastily retreating. Ariel let out a sharp breath. They were just repeating the empty praises she had heard all her life. Progress? What progress? The gods still looked at her the same way they always had. With doubt, with ridicule. Stepping into her chambers, she slammed the door behind her, exhaling slowly. She leaned against the heavy wooden surface, her gaze drifting across the room. This was supposed to be her sanctuary, yet it offered no comfort. The grand gilded furniture, the towering windows draped in silver silk, none of it made her feel at ease. She stepped forward, catching her reflection in the mirror. The face staring back at her was that of a goddess, but all she saw was a failure. Her fingers curled into fists. "At the next party," she muttered under her breath, "I thought it would be better." But their words lingered in her mind. Progress? What a joke. They all knew the truth. She had been stuck in the same place for centuries, unable to control the divine power she was born with. For a god, divine power was as natural as breathing. Yet for Ariel, it remained an untamed force, slipping through her grasp like water. Seeking solace, she stepped into the palace gardens, inhaling the familiar scent of blooming roses. At least, here, she could be alone. She knelt beside a flower bed, her fingers brushing over the petals. "I did it," she murmured to herself. "I can make even more flowers bloom than before." A laugh rang out behind her. Sharp. Mocking. Ariel froze. "You call that divine power?" A voice sneered. "Did you even use any power at all?" She turned to see a group of gods smirking at her, their eyes filled with amusement. "Even if you have innate power, if you can't use it, what's the point?" Another added. "Next king? That's just laughable." Laughter erupted, their voices cutting through the cool night air. Ariel's chest tightened. She had heard it all before, but that didn't make it any easier to bear. She wanted to say something, to fight back. But what was the point? They weren't wrong. Lowering her gaze, she turned away, walking back toward the palace. Her fingers curled around the doorframe as she stepped into her room. She stood there for a moment, staring at the dimly lit interior, feeling the weight of everything pressing down on her. The voices still echoed in her head. A failure. She can't even control her own power. She exhaled sharply. "I know it myself," she mutters into the silence. "For 200 years I've been unable to reign. I can't even escape the image of a child. How pathetic. But still, no matter what," she whispered, her voice colder now. "Mocking me like that is too much." Her nails dug into her palm. They should all go to hell. She let out a slow breath. There was no point dwelling on this now. Sleep. She just needed sleep. Turning away. From the door, she walked toward her bed. As she arranges her pillows, she forced herself to believe that tomorrow would be different. Tomorrow, she would practice harder. She would master her divine power, and she would prove them all wrong. But as she drifted off, a single tear slipped down her cheek. Sleep would erase this helplessness, at least for now. Then, whispers. Is she dead? No way. It's spring now. Ariel, stirred, irritation flickering through her drowsy mind. Who in the heavens was disturbing her sleep? Even though it's spring, it gets cold at night. How could such a small child... What should we do? Her patience snapped. What are you whispering about? She growled, forcing her eyes open. You little brats, coming into my bedroom and disturbing my sleep. Her words died in her throat. This wasn't her bedroom. The towering ceilings, the golden chandeliers, gone. Instead, she found herself lying on rough stone, the sky above her dark and unfamiliar. People, mortals, gathered around her, their faces filled with concern and confusion. A woman knelt beside her. See? I told you she wasn't dead. Thank God. Ariel's breath hitched. Where was she? The woman reached out. Are you okay, young lady? Ariel's pulse pounded in her ears. This wasn't right. She wasn't supposed to be here. Her eyes darted around, taking in the massive structures surrounding her. These weren't the palaces of the gods. They were something else entirely. Her stomach twisted. Is this the surface? She whispered. The woman exchanged a glance with another bystander. This kid is definitely acting strange. Ariel's mind raced. How had this happened? Why was she here? Before she could think, a hand gripped her shoulder. Get it together, the woman said. It's dangerous to be daydreaming in a place like this. Ariel yanked away. What's with this woman all of a sudden? I can't think if she keeps shaking me. A commanding voice interrupted. What's going on here? The crowd parted as two men approached. Their presence alone silenced the murmurs. One of them was regal, imposing. The other walked slightly behind him. Your Highness, the woman said hurriedly, bowing. The Grand Duke. Ariel stiffened. Who? The man beside the Grand Duke eyed her warily. Hey, he said, voice sharp. Answer the prince's question, the woman quickly explained. I was just helping. The child collapsed on the side of the road. She seems unable to speak properly, and her condition doesn't look good either. The Grand Duke's gaze lingered on Ariel. She looks like a noble's daughter, he said at last. Ren, hand her over to the security team. The man beside him nodded. Yes, Your Highness. Ren stepped toward her. Ariel stiffened. No. She didn't know where she was, how she got here, or how to return to the heavens. She had nothing. No power. No answers. She couldn't let him take her away. Her body moved before she could think. She grabbed the Grand Duke's jacket, gripping the fine fabric tightly. Wait. He looked down at her, brows furrowing. Then she says with confidence, Take care of me. His expression shifts, something between disbelief and intrigue. The air around them stills. But Ariel held her ground. If she had nowhere to go, then the best option was obvious. Rely on the most powerful person in sight. A firm grip. Ariel's fingers clutched the Duke's jacket, holding him in place before he could walk away. The street bustled around them, but in that moment, all eyes were on her. The strange girl who had appeared out of nowhere, daring to stop a man of such stature. Now quickly, lead the way, she commanded, her tone leaving no room for argument. Gasps erupted from those nearby. Has she lost her mind? I knew it. She must have hit her head, someone whispered. Miss, you shouldn't be so rude to His Highness, another scolded, eyeing her with disbelief. She didn't let go. Now hurry up and apologize. You're a young lady, after all. Right? Ariel barely acknowledged them, her attention fixed solely on the Duke. He, still in shock, seemed on the verge of saying something when the murmuring crowd grew bolder. Someone reached out as if to pull her away from the Duke. Immediately, Ariel's eyes flashed with irritation. Hey, how dare you touch me so casually? She snapped, jerking her arm away. That's rude. Let go of me. The crowd fell silent. The Duke, however, remained completely composed. His sharp gaze flickered toward Ariel, observing her with quiet curiosity. Then, without a word, he turned to his attendant. Ren, get that child into the carriage. Ren hesitated. Pardon, but... Now, the next thing Ariel knew, she was inside a grand white carriage, rolling smoothly through the dense forest. The sound of music played softly in the background as she leaned against the window, her eyes glimmering with curiosity. The human world. It's so fun. Buildings unlike any in the heavenly realm, strange four-legged animals roaming freely. It was a world of endless wonders. She smirked to herself. I should have come to play sooner. But more importantly, she turned her gaze toward the Duke, observing him closely. This person is something else. She had been lost, stranded, and yet, thanks to this human, she now had a place to stay. Perhaps this situation wasn't so bad after all. A slow, confident smile spread across her lips. You'd better prepare for a grand reward, she mused with pride. Once I return to the heavens, I shall bestow it upon you. With a self-satisfied smirk, Ariel looked at the Duke, her emerald eyes gleaming with confidence, as if he should feel honored by her promise. The Duke arched a brow at her sudden excitement but didn't comment. Instead, he finally asked, Ah, right. What is your name? Ariel blinked, slightly taken aback. He's speaking so casually to me. A goddess? How dare he? Her fingers twitched in irritation. Unacceptable. But then she reconsidered. No, I should turn a blind eye. He is, after all, offering me shelter. My name is Ariel, she said with an air of self-importance. Then, with a smirk, she thought, I'll allow you to address me by my name. Ren, who had been sitting beside the Duke, gave her a long, incredulous stare. She was speaking far too informally with someone of his status. But the Duke, surprisingly, let it slide. Ariel, is it? He mused. The name rings a bell. Ren tilted his head. Ah, probably because it's the name of a goddess. Goddess? The Duke repeated. Yes, a goddess rumored to have been born from roses. She was raised by Acheron, ruler of the gods. Ariel tensed. Does this human know about me? She had never once shown herself to humans, yet they seemed to be aware of her existence. A small pleased smile tugged at her lips. So they do recognize my greatness. But then... Oh, that. Are you talking about the stupid goddess? Silence. Ariel's entire body stiffened. What? The Duke continued, completely oblivious to her growing rage. Born to be a ruler yet unable to wield divine power, and made into a laughingstock. That's the name of that stupid goddess, right? Ariel nearly fell over. This arrogant bastard. Her blood boiled. Who does he think he is? Her hands curled into fists. Forget everything I said. I take back my words. I'll make him pay. Still fuming, she tried to figure out who was responsible for this ridiculous reputation. Who exactly has been spreading such nonsense about me? The goddess of beauty, Alanda? The goddess of birth, Cassandra? Maybe the god of rivers? No, there were too many suspects. As she brooded, the carriage came to a halt. They had arrived. The Duke stepped out first, turning back to offer her a hand. She scoffed internally. Instead of taking it, she grabbed onto Ren's sleeve instead. "You guide the way," she ordered, shooting the Duke a glare. He watched her curiously, his expression unreadable. A flicker of something crossed his face. Confusion, perhaps? But he said nothing. "Ren, bring that child along," he instructed. Ren sighed. "Why am I getting dragged into this?" With that, they stepped into the Duke's mansion, a dazzling estate filled with luxury and grandeur. Gold-trimmed walls, chandeliers casting warm light, an entrance so vast it could fit an entire ballroom. Servants lined up instantly, bowing in perfect synchronization. "Welcome back, Your Grace," the head butler greeted. "You have returned earlier than expected." "Yes, various things happened," the Duke replied, glancing briefly at Ariel. The butler straightened. Then, as usual, "Shall I prepare your bath?" "No," the Duke said, surprising everyone. "Prepare a meal first." A heavy silence filled the room. The butler's eyes widened. "What?" "I'm sure she's starving by now," the Duke added casually, glancing once more at Ariel. She turned away pointedly. Ren chuckled under his breath, uncomfortable in this situation. The head butler, however, was still stunned. He turned his gaze toward Ariel, his eyes narrowing as he studied her. Blonde hair, vivid green eyes, his thoughts raced. That child. Could she be His Majesty's daughter? And so, a misunderstanding of unknown depth began to unfold. A feast fit for royalty lay before her. Succulent ribs, steaming soup, and even lobster. Ariel, the so-called goddess without power, took a bite, her eyes widening in delight. Who knew human food was this good? She mused, savoring every bite. Humans these days were truly incredible. From the side, the head butler smiled warmly. "You're just like your father. Even your favorite food matches his." Father? The word felt foreign, like a whisper from a language she had never known. Ariel blinked. "What? Is a father?" The butler coughed. "Oh, my apologies, miss. Is that word still difficult for you?" Difficult? It was outright meaningless. Ariel stared at him blankly. The butler, Martin, watched her closely, his thoughts wandering. How strange. The Grand Duchess died long ago. A ghost does not bear children. His brows furrowed. This child. She must be the daughter of the Duke's hidden lover. Determined, he straightened his back. No matter her origins, I, Martin, will serve her faithfully. His gaze softened as he observed Ariel stuffing bread into her mouth with innocent enthusiasm. "Yes, this is my new path. Prepare a bath for the young lady," he commanded, sealing his silent vow. Oblivious to the turmoil in his mind, Ariel continued eating. Later, she stood in a grand hall, facing the Duke himself, the man who had taken her in under baffling circumstances. "Did the food suit your taste?" he asked, his voice calm, measured. Memories clawed at her mind. That carriage ride, stupid goddess, that was the name humans associated with her. She had heard it before. But here, in this place, it was different. The Duke had thought about it. He had looked at her, heard her name, Ariel, and silently connected it to that ridicule. The idea made her scowl. "It was okay," she muttered, arms crossed, unwilling to give him more. The Duke merely nodded and lifted the lid of a silver tray. Ariel frowned. "What's that?" Before her lay an unidentifiable lump, a mound of something brown and shapeless. Did humans put clay on plates as decoration? She wondered, completely baffled. "Eat," the Duke instructed. Ariel stiffened. What? Eat. Her stomach twisted. You really want me to eat? That? Her mind screamed in horror. The lump sat there menacing. In her eyes it morphed, glaring at her. You are a failed goddess, it whispered. You belong in the dirt. Ariel clenched her fists. Even without my powers, this is too much. I should at least be able to punish one foolish human. But she had no choice. Gritting her teeth, she picked up the lump, a cookie, though she did not know it, and took a hesitant bite. Her world stopped. What is this? The sweetness melted on her tongue. Warm, buttery, and utterly divine. I didn't know earth and stone could taste this good. She took another bite. And another. Is the dirt of the human world always this sweet? The Duke watched her reaction with mild amusement. Can I ask you something? Still entranced by her earthly delicacy, Ariel barely registered his words. Do you know your surname? She paused. Surname? Yes. Family name. Parents' name. Parents. There it was again. An unknown and useless word. Ariel tilted her head. What's that? The Duke's expression did not change. It's fine. But inwardly, he sighed. She knows nothing. I'll have Wen look into it. Are you done asking questions? Ariel pressed, licking the last crumbs from her fingers. Yes, you may step back now. She reached for another sweet lump of earth, but suddenly she was being escorted away. Wait, my lump of earth. She flailed in protest, reaching toward the tray, but the door shut behind her. Don't go, my sweet lump of earth, she wailed as her maid led her away. Elsewhere, in the dim glow of a room, a young boy perched on a windowsill, his expression unreadable. Father's bastard, he murmured. That's what they say. A servant answers. They claim she looks just like His Highness. The boy smirked, his gaze sharp, calculating. Well then, he mused, pushing off the sill. I suppose it's time I see her face for myself. Ariel's golden hair shimmered under the warm glow of the candlelight as gentle hands combed through it with care. Such silky hair, and what incredibly soft skin, like cotton candy. My lady, you are simply adorable. The maids beamed, delighted by the sight of their young mistress. Yet, despite their praise and attention, Ariel remained silent. No smug smile, no playful arrogance, just a distant, melancholic look in her eyes. The maids exchanged uneasy glances. Why? Has she been so depressed since earlier? One whispered. Did something displease her? If it were the usual Ariel, she would bask in these sweet compliments. She would show a smug face and say, Of course. But Ariel's mind was elsewhere, trapped in the memory of something far more important than their words. Her precious lumps of dirt. She could still picture them. Those round, mysterious black things she had found earlier. She hadn't understood what they were, but she had tasted them. And now, they were gone. Left. Behind in that cold, wretched place. Left with that horrible human. A shiver ran down her spine. The Duke. She imagined him now, hoarding her treasures, unaware of their true worth. Her lips trembled, and a whisper escaped her. My precious lumps of dirt. The maids froze, exchanging worried looks. Ariel barely noticed. I'm sorry, my precious lumps of dirt, she murmured, her heart heavy with regret. Somewhere else in the grand estate, two figures walked side by side down an opulent corridor. Ahin Claudif, the son of the Grand Duke, moved with an air of quiet authority, his sharp green eyes fixed straight ahead. Beside him, his personal butler spoke in a hushed tone. That's exactly how Lord Ahin should be. A bastard child, in the house of the Grand Duke, who values honor as much as his own life. The butler muttered. It has been bothering me for some time now. Ahin's expression remained unreadable. Let's make it clear from the start, so she doesn't get any strange ideas, the butler continued. You're making such a big deal out of dealing with a brat who still reeks of milk, Ahin replied, barely hiding his disinterest. The discussion about the successor was settled 2 years ago, so even if that kid does become part of the Claudive family, she won't be a threat to my position. More than anything, his father was not the kind of man to go back on his word once it had been spoken. Ahin knew that better than anyone. Well, that's true, the butler admitted. But deciding something this important without even consulting you is just too much. Ahin gave a small, knowing smirk. I actually think it's a good thing. The butler hesitated. You do? At least now, the ridiculous rumors about my father being a man-lover have been proven false. The butler stiffened slightly at the blunt words, but Ahin ignored him. His thoughts drifted elsewhere. The illegitimate child that his father had suddenly brought home. Ahin felt nothing toward her. No concern, no resentment. His position was already solid, unshakable. But there was one thing that nagged at him. Her mother, the woman who had captivated his strong and unyielding father. Just how beautiful must she have been? His thoughts wandered further than they should have, imagining a scene where some bewitching woman seduced the Duke. Ahin frowned, shaking the thought away. He reached for the door handle, pausing for only a second. Just what kind of person was she? The door swung open. The room was empty. Is this really the right room? Ahin asked, glancing at his butler. Yes, it should be, the man replied, uncertainty creeping into his voice. I was told it was this room. But where did she go? Ahin sighed, stepping inside. Let's wait here. He lowered himself into a chair, resting his elbow on the armrest, deep in thought. He had no real expectations, but at the very least, he wanted to see this rumored girl once. His gaze wandered absent-mindedly across the room, until it landed on something strange. Cookies, a massive, haphazardly stacked pile of them, his brows furrowed. Why were there so many cookies? And who in the world had stacked them up so crudely? Were they for the servants? He reached out and picked one up. Hey! A sharp voice rang out from the corner of the room. Ahin turned, the cookie still in his hand. A small girl stood before him, eyes blazing with outrage. Don't touch them without permission, Ariel snapped, pointing an accusatory finger at him. The butler stiffened in horror. That illegitimate child. How dare she be so disrespectful to Lord Ahin? Not once in his entire life had anyone spoken to him in such a tone. Ahin slowly lowered, the cookie, his eyes darkening. The butler swallowed nervously. He's definitely angry. Then, without breaking eye contact, Ahin crushed the cookie in his palm. Ariel's breath hitched. Her eyes widened in sheer horror. That bastard, how dare he touch her precious lumps of dirt? Ahin took a step forward, his voice low and dangerous. What did you just say? Ariel clenched her fists. I was going to let this slide, Ahin continued, but it seems I no longer can. Ariel felt a rush of indignation. That insolent brat. Ahin's patience thinned. He needed to put her in her place now. If he didn't, this would only turn into a bigger problem later. Their eyes locked in a heated glare, neither willing to back down. And in the middle of it all, the butler stood frozen, caught between the two forces of chaos. The door to Ariel's room swung open as the maids entered, their voices light and cheerful. Young lady, sorry to keep you waiting. It's tea time. but their words trailed off into stunned silence at the sight before them. Ahin, the young master of the house, was crouched on the floor, carefully picking up cookie crumbs. Ariel towered above him, arms crossed, fury burning in her gaze. "Young Master Ahin, what on earth are you doing?" one of the maids finally managed to ask, her voice filled with disbelief. Ahin, still on his knees, clenched his jaw. "Why?" he thought bitterly. "Why am I the one cleaning the floor?" Later, on the balcony, the air remained tense despite the peaceful setting of tea and pastries. "Have you both calmed down a little?" one of the maids asked hesitantly. "Sorry," Ahin muttered, his thoughts elsewhere. "Something feels off. At first I was certain." His mind wandered back to the moment before he had found himself on the floor. "I need to clearly establish who's in charge here. Otherwise this could become troublesome later," he had thought. Ariel had been furious. Over a mere cookie. Ridiculous. Maybe I should teach this cheeky brat a little lesson. But before he could act, Ariel had snapped at him. "Hey you! You've been muttering nonsense for a while now." Ahin had barely processed her words before she added, her tone sharp. "Putting your feet on the table? Is that how nobles behave? Get them off immediately. Don't you have any manners?" Stunned into silence, he had complied. Why do I have to be spoken to like this? He had thought. Humiliated. He wasn't acting like himself at all. Such a strange one. Now, as he studied her across the table, his gaze hardened. She sat there, unbothered, munching on a cookie, her cat-like eyes gleaming with confidence. Come, to think of it, she's actually rather charming. Ahin immediately shook the thought away. No, that's not it. All kids are cute, right? It's not like she looks especially adorable or anything. Meanwhile, Ariel eyed him suspiciously. What has he been groaning about for so long? Growing impatient, she finally spoke. So, how long are you planning to keep me waiting? Hurry up and tell me why you've brought me here. Ahin narrowed his eyes at her tone. What a way to speak, coming from such a little squirt, but he forced himself to remain calm. Hold it together. It's for the sake of what's to come. I apologize. I didn't mean to dirty the room earlier. He straightened. My name is Ahin Cloudif. Ariel blinked at him. I got a little carried away after hearing the news of someone new joining the Duke's household and ended up being rude. So, what's your name? She lifted her chin. I'm Lady Ariel. Ahin's expression tightened. Her arrogance was gratin. Ariel, that name sounds familiar. Then it hit him. Ah, the foolish goddess. Ariel stiffened. Realizing his slip, he quickly corrected himself. No, I mean, it's the same name as the goddess said to have been born from a rose. He smirked slightly. Ariel Cloudif. It's a good name. Ariel froze at the sound of it. Cloudif? I'm just Ariel, she corrected, frowning. So father hasn't granted you a family name yet? Ahin mused. Don't worry. Now that you've come to the Duke's residence, you're also a member of the Cloudif family. Ariel's mind reeled. Even though I'm only staying for a while, her name tied to humans? Humans have such peculiar customs. Ahin, oblivious to her inner turmoil, continued sipping his tea. Ariel's gaze sharpened. By the way, what is your relationship with your father? Ahin looked up, slightly puzzled. What a strange thing to ask. What kind of relationship, you say? Of course we share the same blood. Ariel paled. Blood? Yes, blood. Ahin said it so casually that it sent a chill down her spine. Ariel's thoughts spiraled. Humans. They have a custom of sharing blood with one another? Ahin continued, unaware of the horror building in her expression. Naturally, the only ones alive now are my father and me. Ariel's breath hitched. Can they die from it? How cruel. Her vision blurred. This might just be a misunderstanding. Could it be that the blood you speak of is The blood that flows within the body? Her voice wavered. Please tell me that's not the case. Silence. Ahin only stared at her, confused. Ariel's expression darkened, her mind conjuring horrors. Of course. Her lips trembled. Ah! She let out a shriek, pure terror in her eyes. The maids rushed forward. Young lady! Ahin blinked in confusion. What's wrong? Ariel swayed, her thoughts a chaotic mess. My blood. Darkness crept into her. Vision. Call a doctor! One of the maids cried out. Was the food poisoned? Another gasped. As her consciousness faded, Ariel clutched onto one final thought. My blood belongs to no one. The Duke sat in his grand study, the firelight flickering against the polished wood of his desk. His fingers tapped idly against the surface as he processed the information just delivered to him. Did you confirm it properly? The Duke's voice cut through the silence. Of course, Your Highness. I sent someone to check every administrative office in the capital, but... Ren hesitated. There are no records of a child with blonde hair and green eyes. The Duke frowned, his gaze drifting to the memory of Ariel, the girl who had appeared out of nowhere. Her dignified posture, the quality of her dress, the way she commanded everyone around her. Everything about her suggested noble upbringing, not a lost, wandering child. That's strange, he murmured, his thoughts deepening. Ren stepped forward. Do you have any idea what this might be about? Before the Duke could answer, the heavy doors of the study burst open. A maid rushed inside, breathless, eyes wide with urgency. Your Highness, she gasped. Ren narrowed his eyes. What do you think this place is? It's rude to enter without knocking. The maid bowed hastily. I apologize, but this is urgent. Calm down and tell me what happened, the Duke ordered. The maid hesitated for only a moment before blurting out. It's Lady. Ariel, please come quickly! Without wasting another second, the Duke strode past her, Ren close behind. The halls felt unusually quiet as they approached Ariel's room. The servants stood stiffly at the edges, their faces pale with worry. The Duke entered first, his gaze immediately falling on the still figure lying in the bed. Martin, he said, his voice sharp. The head butler stepped forward. Your Highness, we don't understand either. He lowered his head. While speaking with the young master, Lady Ariel suddenly lost consciousness. The Duke's jaw tightened. And the doctor. He examined her but found nothing wrong with her body. The room fell into a tense silence. A healthy child suddenly collapses, and you expect me to believe there's no reason? His voice was low, dangerous. Before anyone could respond, a sudden gasp filled the room. Ariel bolted upright. Stop it! Everyone turned, startled. Her breath was ragged, her eyes wild with fear. My blood! I will absolutely not give my blood, she cried. The Duke's eyes narrowed. Blood? Behind him, the butler stiffened. What are you talking about? The Duke demanded. A flicker of realization dawned on him. His gaze darkened. Could it be? He turned toward his staff, his voice sharp. While I was away, did any of you do something to this child? Never. The servants' panicked denials filled the air. Your Highness, we would never lay hands on a young lady, Martin swore. The Duke exhaled slowly. Certainly child abuse is impossible in this mansion, he thought. But if lives are considered precious, then such things shouldn't happen elsewhere either. And then it struck him. His breath caught. His blood ran cold. A blood bag. His mind reeled at the possibility. In the Empire's darkest corners, there existed a cruel, illegal practice. Slaves used solely to provide blood for transfusions. The mere thought of it sent rage boiling in his veins. His eyes flickered back to Ariel, trembling in her bed, staring at them all as if they were monsters. How many scars does she carry? As Grand Duke, it was his duty to uphold order. If this child had been used in such a horrifying way, then he had failed. He took a step closer to the bed. Ariel flinched. A hand, gentle yet firm, came to rest on her head. "It's okay," the Duke said, his voice softer now. Ariel's breath hitched. Slowly, she lifted her eyes to meet his. "As long as I'm here," he continued, "no one will harm you." Ariel's mind spun. Why is he suddenly speaking so kindly? Didn't he come to take my blood? But then, his words reached her again. "I promise, I will make sure no one takes your blood again." Her body stiffened. She hesitated. "You really won't take my blood?" The Duke looked almost offended. "What would I even use it for?" His tone turned firm again. "More importantly, won't you tell me who threatened you?" Ariel hesitated. She looked at him. This person is kind. He had a commanding presence, an arrogance that spoke of power, but he didn't seem like a bad person. She parted her lips to speak. "Actually," she started. Then her breath caught. She wasn't alone in the room. Her eyes darted to the farthest corner. A shadow loomed near the door. A figure stood, arms crossed, watching. Hin. Her heart pounded. Her breath came in short, panicked bursts. Why is that person here? The Duke noticed her reaction immediately. "What's wrong?" Ariel's body trembled. She lifted a shaking finger, pointing directly at the silent figure. "You..." Hin blinked in confusion. "Me?" The Duke's voice turned icy. "Hin, explain." Hin stepped forward, alarm flashing across his face. "It's not me," he protested. "I have no idea what she's talking about." Ariel's breath grew shallow. Her vision blurred. Then, just like before, her body gave way. Darkness swallowed her, whole. A stunned silence filled the room. "Lady Ariel has lost consciousness again," someone whispered. The Duke's expression hardened. His gaze locked onto his son. "Follow me," he ordered coldly. Hin hesitated. "Father, wait. This is a misunderstanding." But the Duke was already walking away. No blood was shed that day. But Hin still became a victim. Lying on her bed, Ariel stared at the ceiling, lost in thought. "It's already been a week since I suddenly fell to earth and started living in a human's house," she mused. At least the misunderstanding about the whole blood theft thing had been cleared up. So humans were such good-natured beings all along, she thought with relief. Now she could finally relax. She closed her eyes, stretching out across the massive bed. The sheer scale of this space is impressive, but... She opened her eyes again, sighing. "It's utterly dull." "My lady, are you awake?" Ariel nearly jumped out of her skin. "Jane, you scared me. How long have you been standing there?" The maid giggled. "If you're struggling with boredom, why not go out for a bit?" Ariel's eyes sparkled. "Going out? That's a great idea." She grabbed Jane's hands. "Let's head out at once." Meanwhile, elsewhere in the estate, Hin stood stiffly, at the top of a staircase, arms crossed and irritation practically radiating off him. "That brat really put me through hell." He scowled, thinking back to his father's infuriatingly casual response after the truth about the misunderstanding came to light. After investigating, it seems it was all a mistake. "My apologies." Ahina had barely contained his disbelief. "Are you seriously ending this with just one sentence, father?" Gritting his teeth, he clenched his fists. "That brat. Next time we meet, no matter how much she cries or begs on her knees, I'll never forgive her." And then, as if fate itself wanted to mock him, she appeared. You've come at just the right time, Ahin muttered, turning to face Ariel. This time, he declared, I'll make it clear who's superior. Ariel blinked at him, tilting her head. Oh, so it was you, the one offering to be my guide. Ahin's brow twitched. What? Before he could react, Ariel reached out and tugged at his sleeve. Why are you just standing there like that? Ahin's entire body froze. Oh no. Cute. Then, as if physically rejecting his own thoughts, he smacked himself back to reality. Get a grip, Ahin. Did you already forget what that brat did to you? Meanwhile, Jane beamed. Oh my, Ahin. Since the Grand Duke is out inspecting the territory today, I came to ask for permission to go out. But for you to personally accompany us, what an honor, Ahin sighed. So that's what this is about. Well, he muttered, arms crossed. It would be concerning to let you go alone, that's all. Ariel turned to Jane. Oh, Ahin is so kind. And just like that, he was roped into escorting them through the city. As they wandered from shop to shop, Ahin watched in exhausted disbelief as Jane enthusiastically helped Ariel pick out clothes and accessories, one after another. She never seems to get tired, he thought, rubbing his temple. Then suddenly he felt a light tug on his jacket. He glanced down. What now? Ariel, looking completely worn out, pointed weakly toward Jane. Please, stop that woman. Ahin smirked. Knew it. I don't want to walk anymore, Ariel declared. I want to sit down. Ahin exhaled. Jane, we'll rest over there. Go finish your shopping. But my lady, go. And just like that, Jane disappeared into the crowd. Ahin sighed in relief as they finally sat down inside a shop. Meanwhile, Ariel looked around curiously. What do they do here? She wondered, scanning the interior. Then something hit her senses. A smell. She inhaled. That scent. A familiar earthy aroma. Soil clump? Her mind flashed back to the past. Crumbly, dense clumps she had eaten before. I haven't had any in so long. Determined, she stepped forward and called to the shopkeeper. You? There, bring me the finest soil clump you've got! The baker froze. Ahin was busy inspecting some crates with his servant when a sharp cry suddenly echoed through the air. His head snapped around immediately. That voice. Ariel. Ariel, what's wrong? He asked, stepping toward her. Ariel stood there, green eyes, brimming with disbelief as she pointed at the plate in front of her as if it had personally offended her. What is this? It's rotten. Are you mocking me? The bakery owner blinked in confusion. Rotten? I only brought you soil clumps as you ordered. There they were. Real, actual soil clumps. Jane and Ahin exchanged bewildered glances. What exactly did you eat? Ariel, lips trembling, a small tear welling up in the corner of her eye. Why would a cafe even have real soil clumps? She thought, devastated. And then, salvation. My lady, here, have a cookie. Her head snapped toward the voice. Cookie? Ariel's eyes locked onto the golden brown treat placed before her. The real thing. The delicious, sweet-smelling snack she had unknowingly been searching for. Thanks to this ridiculous incident, she finally learned the name of the so-called soil clump. Do you like cookies that much? The maid asked, amused. Yes, they are truly delicious. Give me more. That's enough for today. If you eat too much, you'll get a stomachache. Ariel frowned. A mere human controlling her cookie consumption? But then the maid gently patted her head. Since you're holding back today, tomorrow's cookie will taste even better. Well, whatever. Ariel sighed, closing her eyes, and leaning into the maid's touch. Being petted by a human? It actually feels kind of nice, she admitted to herself. Later in her room, Ariel absent-mindedly flipped through a book. Boring. She yawned, tossing it aside. "My lady, don't be so disappointed." The maid's voice interrupted her thoughts. "His Highness will be back for dinner." Ariel blinked. "He's coming back today?" "Yes. It seems he'll be returning earlier than expected." "Why?" "I suppose he's worried about you, my lady." Ariel frowned. "Worried about me? Why?" The maid smiled softly. "Because such an adorable daughter is waiting for her daddy to come home." Silence. Ariel's brain stalled. "Daddy?" she echoed, horrified. "Yes, of course. It's totally natural for a father to be concerned." Ariel sat frozen, her mind spiraling. Grand Duke, His Highness, father. And now, daddy? Daughter daddy. What in the world is all this? She thought in horror, groaning as she buried her face in her pillow. What is happening to my life? Then, an idea struck her. Wait a second. She bolted upright. Even if I can't go outside, I'm free to walk around inside the mansion. Her expression shifted instantly. Moments later, she was in the garden. The soft soil beneath her feet, the crisp scent of flowers in the air. It was liberating. I had no idea such a beautiful place existed here, she thought. I'll make good use of this from now on. Then, a shadow moved. A low buzzing filled the air. Ariel froze. A bee hovered dangerously close. Be grateful, she declared dramatically, to the heavens. And then, sting. Silence. Ariel's expression darkened. Who dares to sting the body of a goddess? The bee, of course, said nothing. How shameless, she snapped. Apologize now, and I might consider forgiveness. Still nothing. So you refuse? Ariel narrowed her eyes. Fine. If you won't learn the easy way. A loud buzzing. She turned. More bees. A lot more bees. Great. Now don't come any closer. But they did. Her royal composure shattered. She ran for her life, plunging deeper into the garden. At some point, she stopped. The air felt different. The trees loomed taller, the sunlight barely reaching through the thick branches. Where am I? Her once pristine dress was now dirt-stained. A shiver crawled down her spine. Then, a rustling above. She looked up. A crow. It tilted its head, its beady black eyes watching her. Quah! Ariel flinched. Then, it dove. Stop. Stay back. Don't come any closer, she shrieked, shielding herself. And then, a deep voice. So this is where you were. The darkness seemed to lift as a tall figure stepped into view. Him. The Duke. Ariel, still on the ground, dirt-smudged and wide-eyed, looked up at him. I was wondering where you had gone off to. His tone was calm, but there was something in his gaze. Concern? He took a step closer. Ariel gulped, and before she could stop herself, Daddy? Relief flooded her, and without hesitation, she ran toward him. Daddy! She cried out, flinging herself into his arms. The Grand Duke barely had time to react before she clung tightly to him. Daddy? He thought, utterly bewildered. You're late. I was so scared, she scolded, her grip firm as she buried her face in his chest. The Duke stiffened, struggling to process the situation. Daddy? Again? I am? He stammered. Still lost in confusion, the Duke let out a slow sigh. Let's return to the mansion, he finally said. Earlier that day, the Duke had embarked on an extensive inspection of his vast lands. Today is the day for territorial inspection. He had reminded himself in the morning. The journey had been long and exhausting. As he leaned against the window frame of his carriage, his eyes shut momentarily. I'll be sure to rest when I return home, he had thought. At least, that had been the plan. As he arrived at the mansion, chaos greeted him. "She's not in the garden," a maid cried. "I don't see her on the second-floor terrace either," another shouted in alarm. "Double-check her room just to be sure." The Duke, exhausted, stood still for a moment before turning to his butler. "Martin," he called. Martin flinched before bowing. "Your Highness, have you returned?" "It's been quite noisy. Did something happen?" the Duke asked, rubbing his temples. Martin hesitated. "Well, actually, the young lady—" The Duke listened as he was informed of the situation. His exhaustion was momentarily forgotten. Why does she always cause such a commotion? He thought. If she's not in the mansion, then she must have gone into the forest. Without another word, he stepped into the dark garden and made his way toward the woods. "I need to find her before she gets attacked by wild animals." A rustling sound made him stop in his tracks. His sharp gaze followed the noise until he spotted a small figure crouched on the ground. Ariel. The first thing he felt was relief. And then, she called him Daddy. Stunned, he could only stare at her. But seeing how small and vulnerable she looked, he sighed. "Let's go back," he said at last. Back at the mansion, Ariel sat on the medical bed, wincing as the doctor applied ointment to her stings. "Ow, that hurts. Can't you be gentler?" she complained. The doctor merely smiled. "Bear with it a little longer," Ariel huffed, crossing her arms. "Next time I see those bees, I won't hold back." The doctor chuckled. "Indeed, I'll help you with that too." By the doorway, the Duke stood, arms crossed, deep in thought. His mind replayed the moment she had thrown herself at him, calling him something no one ever had before. Not even his own son. His thoughts were interrupted as the doctor turned to him. "Your Highness, I've finished treating the young lady." "I see. Thank you for your efforts this late at night. It's no trouble at all. The swelling should go down in a few days and there's no concern for scarring," the doctor reassured him. The Duke gave a small nod. "Since the child is safe, everyone may return to their duties." The maids and servants bowed before quietly exiting the room. Just as the Duke turned to leave, something tugged at his sleeve. He paused. Looking down, he found Ariel gripping his coat tightly, her gaze averted. Behind him, a maid spoke up. "Your Highness, are you not going?" The Duke glanced at Ariel's, small hand still clutching his sleeve. "I have something to discuss with this child," he said. "You may go." The maid bowed and left. The Duke turned back to Ariel. "Why are you holding onto my clothes?" Ariel puffed up her cheeks. "Why? Of course, because it's dangerous." The Duke raised an eyebrow. "Dangerous? What if something attacks again?" she accused. The Duke sighed. "Nothing can get in here. The windows are securely closed." Ariel cast a wary glance toward the window, where several crows perched ominously outside. "No," she cried, throwing herself against him again. "They might break through the glass." The Duke gave her a long, tired look. Looking at her like this, "She's just a child." He sighed once more. "Fine. What would help you sleep soundly?" Ariel hesitated before whispering, "Stay by my side until I fall asleep." The Duke hesitated but eventually sat beside the bed. "Hey, why are you sitting so far away?" she huffed. "Come closer." The Duke sighed again but leaned in slightly. "Closer," she insisted. Finally, when he was close enough, Ariel let out a contented hum. "Now I can finally sleep." The Duke watched her, her breathing slowly evening out. Good grief. For the first time, as she clung to his sleeve, he felt something unfamiliar. Warmth. Perhaps this isn't so bad after all. The next morning, A fist landed straight against the Duke's face. His eyes shot open just in time to see Ariel rolling across the bed, completely lost in her dreams. "Take that, you fool," she mumbled, kicking out. Another hit landed on him. "That's what you get for underestimating me," the Duke groaned. So it was all just an illusion. It was a quiet night at the Duke's mansion, the soft glow of candlelight flickering against the grand walls as the distant chirping of crickets filled the silence. In the Duke's study, the scent of parchment and ink lingered in the air when, suddenly, a sharp voice broke through the stillness. "Dad, what are you dawdling for?" Ariel stood in the doorway, her arms crossed, golden hair catching the warm light. Her voice carried no doubt, only expectation. "Hurry up and come to my room. It's almost time for me to go to bed." The Duke barely glanced up from his paperwork and sighed. "Why are you even telling me this?" His tired gaze met hers, already knowing what was coming next. "Don't tell me you want me to sleep in your room again tonight?" Ariel stood proudly, her voice unwavering. "Of course. I heard that rowdy bird's cries again earlier. Who knows what might happen, so come quickly." The Duke exhaled heavily. It had been a week since she started calling him like this. Being summoned so often was becoming intolerable. He needed to make things clear to her. Soon. But Ariel wasn't concerned with his thoughts. She turned on her heel and left the room. The Duke watched her go, shaking his head. "What a predicament," he muttered. From the corner of the room, the butler, Martin, smiled knowingly before stepping forward. "Your Highness, may I have a quick word before you retire?" The Duke sighed. "What is it?" "I believe it is time for the young lady to begin her lessons." The Duke raised a brow. "Lessons?" Meanwhile, Ariel hummed to herself as she strolled back to her room, completely unaware of the discussion happening behind her. "She is still very young, so there is no need to rush," Martin continued. "But learning proper etiquette, reading, and writing would be appropriate." The Duke leaned back in his chair, deep in thought. Providing an education for a child he was only temporarily taking care of? It felt unnecessary. But then again, for a child without supportive parents, the world was far from kind. Martin watched him expectantly. The Duke sighed. "That's right. Let's go with that. Teaching her wouldn't be a waste." Martin's face lit up. "Yes, Your Highness. Leave the young lady's matters to me." And so, a tutor was hired. The next morning, Ariel was still tangled in her sheets, her hair a wild mess, when a firm voice interrupted her sleep. "Is this my new workplace, Martin?" A woman stood in the doorway, sharp eyes scanning the room. Martin bowed. "A veteran tutor with 10 years of experience, Mrs. Martha Galea." Ariel blinked, still half asleep. "What did you say?" The woman stepped closer with an air of authority. "Young lady, it is exactly as it sounds. I will be your tutor starting today." "Oh my, there is so much to teach," Martha added, wasting no time as she grabbed Ariel's wrist and practically dragged her from the bed. Ariel groaned. "What do you mean? Why must I receive an education?" Martin, seeing his opportunity, quickly slipped away before she could protest further. "I don't need such a thing," Ariel called after him, glaring. Martha, completely unbothered, crossed her arms. "Well, young lady, shall we start by learning how to tidy up that messy hair of yours?" Ariel's face fell. "No." Later that day, in another part of the mansion, Ahin slumped against his desk, groaning. "Phew, I thought I'd die of boredom." He had just returned from a literature lesson, and it had drained the last bit of his energy. Why are they always so tedious? He sighed, stretching before, making his way to his wardrobe. "I'm done for today. Time to rest." But as he pulled the door open, his body froze. Inside, tucked between his clothes, was a small figure. "Hey, what are you doing here?" Ahin stared at Ariel, who was clutching a handful of fabric in front of her like a shield. "Quiet," she hissed, eyes darting around the room. "I don't want to be found." Ahin crossed his arms. "Found by who?" "That's none of your concern," she snapped. He sighed. "Good grief. No one is allowed to enter this room without my permission." Ariel's expression changed. "Is that so?" She stepped out of the wardrobe, tilting her head. "So no one can enter this room without permission?" "That's what I just said," Ahin replied, watching her suspiciously. "Now, who exactly are you hiding from?" Ariel huffed dramatically. "Truly despicable humans." Ahin raised a brow. "Humans? If they find me, they'll make me learn those weird letters again," she muttered, crossing her arms. "Letters?" A smirk tugged at Ahin's lips as realization dawned. "Ah. Could it be? You mean your lessons?" Ariel's eyes widened, in horror, as if the word itself was cursed. Ariel scowled. "Why must I become something like that? Either way, I'll be returning to the celestial realm soon enough. What's the point?" She sank to the floor, dramatic as ever. Why must I suffer like this?" Ahin shook his head. "Don't make such a fuss over mere letters." Ariel shot him a glare. "It's not because it's hard. It's because it's boring." Ahin leaned against the doorframe. "What do you mean there's no need to learn? If I learn letters, what do I even gain? Knowledge." Ahin's expression turned serious. "And knowledge is power. It's natural to follow those who are intelligent. Surely you wouldn't want to live your life being looked down on by subordinates, would you?" Ariel flinched. For a brief moment, her mind flashed back to the celestial realm, to the mockery, the whispers, the years of being powerless. No, she never wanted to feel that way again. But lessons were just so boring. Ahin smirked. "I see. We'll just have to use a secret strategy then." Ariel blinked, curiosity piqued. "Secret strategy?" Suddenly he held up a small golden-brown object. "A cookie?" Ariel's eyes sparkled. Later in the kitchen, panic was setting in. "The cookies are all gone." A chef turned to his assistant. "Didn't you take a bunch earlier?" "Make more, quickly." Back in the study, Ariel munched on a cookie while flipping a page of a book. "Shall we learn the next word?" Ahin asked, holding another treat, just out of reach. Ariel's mouth was full, but she nodded enthusiastically. Martha, the strict tutor, was stunned. "Young lady, how brilliant you are. This is how you will grow into a refined lady befitting a duke's daughter." She clapped her hands together in pure delight. Ariel barely noticed. She swallowed quickly and turned to her maid. "Jane, bring me more cookies immediately," Jane bowed. "Yes, young lady." Ahin shook his head, half impressed, half exasperated. "Well, whatever works." Ahin sat across from Ariel in the study. On the table, a single cookie sat like a prize for her efforts. "Now read it," the tutor instructed. Ariel sighed dramatically, but her eyes flicked to the cookie before she finally complied. "The ruler of the gods is Acheron," she recited flatly. "Did you remember that?" Ahin asked, his gaze steady. "Of course I know that much," Ariel scoffed, and with that, she reached for the cookie, claiming her well-earned reward. But just as she took a bite, her body stiffened. "Oh my God," she groaned, clutching her stomach. Ahin's eyes narrowed. "What now?" "Hey, what's wrong all of a sudden?" he asked. "My stomach," Ariel whimpered. Ahin frowned, concern flickering across his face. "Somebody up there! Call a doctor immediately!" Ahin shouted. Later, Ahin recalled the doctor's harsh words. How many cookies did you feed such a small child for it to come to this? From now on, snacks are absolutely forbidden, the doctor had declared. Got it, Ahin had replied, defeated. No matter how much the young lady begs, it's absolutely not allowed, the doctor had insisted. Back in the study, Ahin sat with his arms crossed. Great. Now what do I use to bribe her into studying? He watched as Ariel wrestled with her tutor, refusing to continue her lessons. Dresses? Jewels? She doesn't seem interested in those at all, he muttered to himself. Young Master Ahin, came a voice. He turned to see Jane, one of the maids, approaching. Are you troubled about the young lady's studies? Yes, I finally got her to sit at the desk, but now I have no idea what to use next to keep her there, Ahin admitted. Jane leaned in and whispered something. Ahin paused. That might actually work. That evening, he entered Ariel's room, a smug expression on his face. Ariel, do you dislike studying so much? She turned to him, already suspicious. Of course, she said bluntly. Honestly, someone like me doesn't need to study. I only pretended to do it for the sake of cookies. Ahin's smirk widened. Then, how about going out? Ariel froze. Going out? She repeated, her suspicion shifting to curiosity. I thought you might be bored staying inside the mansion all the time, Ahin said casually. Ariel's mind raced. The mansion is dull, but going out alone is terrifying. Fine, she mumbled. But, Ahin cut in. On one condition. Ariel narrowed. Her eyes. Of course there's a catch. If you study properly with the tutor, I'll take you, Ahin said simply. Ariel scowled, while behind her the tutor looked delighted. How about it? Want to give it a try? Ahin pressed, his voice confident. Ariel huffed but didn't argue. The next morning, Ariel sat in front of her mirror as Jane finished styling her hair. Are you really that happy? Jane asked with a small smile. Of course, Ariel said, staring at her reflection. I worked really hard studying just for this day. But the outside is dangerous, so please be careful, Jane warned. Don't let go of your brother's hand, all right? Ariel turned to her, frowning slightly. Why do humans have so many different titles? Dad, father, brother. It's such a hassle. But in the end, she shrugged. Well, as long as I can go out, it doesn't matter. Yes, I'll hold on to my brother's hand tightly and head out, she said, though her real focus was just on the fact that she was finally leaving the mansion. The moment they stepped onto the city streets, whispers followed them. Is that the child everyone's talking about? That's right. She's the one the Duke took in. She looks just like His Highness, doesn't she? Really? Could it be that she's going to become the Duke's daughter? Absolutely not. That couldn't possibly happen. A voice cut through the murmurs. A noble woman with violet hair scoffed, her expression dripping with disdain. For an illegitimate child to become a duke's daughter? That's unthinkable, she sneered. Ahin stopped walking. They say whatever they please, he muttered, before stepping forward. His voice was steady, but dangerously cold. How dare you speak so casually of my father's name? The murmurs died instantly. To insult His Majesty's only brother. His eyes darkened as he glared at the woman, the sole Grand Duke of this empire. And to call her illegitimate? What nonsense, he finished sharply. The noble woman stiffened, then let out a soft, mocking laugh. Oh? But am I wrong? Ahin's patience wore thin. But before he could reply, another voice rang out. What did you just say? The noble woman turned, only to be met with a piercing glare. Ariel. A tense silence settled over the street. Looking down on me? Ariel's voice was ice cold. Who do you think you are? The noblewoman's lips curled slightly. A mere child dares to challenge me? She turned fully toward Ariel, raising her hand. But suddenly, a swift, sharp kick landed directly on the noblewoman's shin. She stumbled back. Ariel stood firm. Back at the Duke's estate, the tension in the room was thick. The Duke sat at the head of the table, his piercing gaze fixed on Ahin, who sipped his tea with deliberate calm. "Do we really need to go that far?" the Duke asked. "Of course we do," Ahin replied, unfazed. "Insulting father like that, even if that child is a bastard, she still carries the Cloudiff bloodline." The Duke stiffened. "A bastard? What does that mean?" he demanded. But before Ahin could answer, the doors burst open. "Your Highness!" Ren rushed in, looking troubled. "Ren, what's wrong?" the Duke asked sharply. Ren hesitated. "Well, here's the thing. Things took an unexpected turn." The Duke's frown deepened. "Speak clearly." Ren glanced around before lowering his voice. "The child we picked up the other day. People are saying she's your illegitimate daughter." Silence. The Duke turned fully to Ren, his expression unreadable. "How did the story get blown out of proportion like this?" Ren sighed. "You never gave a proper explanation about that child. And, well, she looks just like you, Your Highness." The misunderstanding took root. The Duke leaned back in his chair, his mind racing. "Ariel, we do look alike." That explained why everyone had been overly cautious about the temporary guardianship. He exhaled sharply. "Why must I be criticized so much over an illegitimate child I have no knowledge of?" But there was a deeper problem. If word got out that a commoner's child injured a noble's daughter and even impersonated royalty, the consequences would be severe. "This has taken a very troublesome turn," the Duke murmured. Then, "Daddy!" The Duke jerked upright. "What now?" The doors slammed open, and there stood Ariel, her face scrunched in frustration. "I've been injured. Hurry and treat me." The Duke stared at her, blinking. "What are you looking at? I told you it hurts." Ariel pouted, standing there expectantly. The Duke turned to Ren, his voice calm but firm. "Prepare the adoption papers immediately." Ren stiffened. "Yes, Your Highness?" Later, a grand hall. A man knelt on the floor, his forehead pressed against the cold marble, his daughter bowing beside him. "I apologize, Your Highness. My foolish daughter has been terribly disrespectful to you." The Duke remained silent, his gaze unreadable. "What are you waiting for?" "Apologize," the father urged. The girl lowered her head further. I'm so sorry." The Duke barely acknowledged them. Instead, he turned to Ariel. "Is that all?" The kneeling man flinched. "Of course, we sincerely apologize. To the young lady as well." The Duke remained impassive. "Ariel, what will you do?" Ariel frowned. "What do you mean?" "You will decide the punishment." The father paled. "Your Highness." The Duke didn't even glance at him. "Why are you surprised? The one who was insulted should be the one to decide the punishment." Ariel's lips curled in thought. Then her eyes lit up. "I can do whatever I want?" she asked, a glint of mischief in her gaze. Ariel smirked, then turned to the culprits. "Then, get them out of my sight. Also, they're prohibited from eating for the next 3 days." Silence. Ariel hesitated. "Huh? Isn't that too harsh?" Still, she doubled down. "No snacks either." More silence. Ariel began second-guessing herself. They are allowed to drink water, though." The Duke exhaled, shaking his head slightly. Then, to Ariel's frustration, he chuckled. "Why are you laughing?" she snapped. He composed himself. "Forgive me. Truly." His gaze lingered on Ariel, something like amusement in his eyes. "My daughter is merciful." Ariel blinked, The Duke's tone turned cold once more as he addressed the kneeling man. You heard her. You are forbidden from food for 3 days. The man swallowed hard. Yes, as you command. And if you break this promise, you will be put on trial. Understood, Your Highness. Later that evening, the Duke sat in his study deep in thought. The flickering candlelight cast long shadows across the room. How strange, he murmured. I never thought I would actually adopt that child. He exhaled. At this point, I have no choice but to raise her properly. A knock at the door. Your Highness? Ren's voice came from outside. What is it? Ren stepped in, bowing slightly. A messenger from the palace has arrived. The Duke's brows furrowed. From the palace? Yes. His Majesty has issued a command. A pause. You and the young lady must attend the palace tomorrow. The Duke's expression darkened. To the palace? A new storm was brewing. The carriage rumbled through the dense forest, wheels clattering over uneven ground. Inside, the Duke sat in silence, lost in thought. He had planned to visit the imperial palace soon, but for his brother to summon him first? That was unexpected. His Majesty, the Emperor, his own brother, had always cherished him as his only younger full-blooded sibling. But the moment he had claimed the throne, that warmth had been buried beneath duty and bloodshed. The Duke could still recall it vividly. The cold marble floors stained red, a dagger glinting under torchlight, the lifeless bodies of their half-siblings. The Emperor had been merciless. Dad, look over there! Ariel's bright voice cut through his thoughts. The Duke glanced at her. She was leaning against the carriage window, pointing at the sky with an excited expression. The clouds look like cookies. Look quickly before they disappear. The Duke exhaled, shaking his head. If only things could stay this simple. His only hope was that Ariel wouldn't offend his brother. The moment they entered, the Emperor's voice rang out. How adorable. The Duke froze. His brother's tone was unnervingly warm, nothing like the ruthless ruler he remembered. He watched, stunned, as the Emperor smiled at Ariel, placing a delicate pastry into her hands. What is this food called? She asked, inspecting it curiously. It's called cake, young lady, the Emperor replied, eyes gleaming with amusement. The Duke barely concealed his shock. Was this truly the same man? The Emperor, who had ruthlessly wiped out their half-siblings, now doting on Ariel like a proud uncle. It was absurd. Ariel, oblivious to the tension, stuffed the cake into her mouth and beamed. This food called cake has an exquisite taste, the Emperor chuckled. Did you like it? Here, have more. He eagerly piled more onto her plate. Enough, the Duke snapped, turning to Jane. Take Ariel away! Yes, Your Grace. The maid hurried forward. Hey, let me go, Ariel protested, struggling as Jane gently but firmly ushered her out of the room. Oh dear, the Emperor sighed dramatically. But she hasn't finished eating yet. The Duke stiffened. Your Majesty, please maintain your dignity. The Emperor merely laughed. Perhaps I got a bit too excited. Still, I must say, I was quite surprised when I met her. For you, of all people, a man who dislikes women, to have an illegitimate child. The Duke clenched his jaw. I do find it regrettable that you hid her existence, the Emperor continued. The Duke exhaled slowly. I sincerely apologize for the misunderstanding. A sharp bark of laughter cut through the room. You scoundrel. The Emperor's tone turned accusatory. How dare you have a daughter before me? The Duke blinked. What? You know how much I've wanted a daughter, the Emperor huffed. I've prayed for over 10 years, yet all I have are stubborn, unbearable sons. And yet you. How did you manage to have such a cute daughter? The Duke felt his headache intensify. We're brothers, aren't we? The Emperor continued. You could at least share your secret, What method did you use? The Duke exhaled. I found her. The Emperor's grin faltered. You found her? Yes. She is not my biological daughter. The amusement drained from the Emperor's face, replaced by something colder. Blonde hair is common, but those green eyes, I've never seen them on anyone outside the royal family. I only noticed that later myself, the Duke admitted. The Emperor's eyes gleamed. Tell me, where did such a child come from? He leaned forward, voice laced with curiosity. It's almost as if she's your child, brother. The Duke tensed. The Emperor laughed suddenly. Relax, I'm only joking. But let's be clear, she's not actually your daughter, correct? Well, technically no. And yet, you intend to raise her? The Duke pulled out the adoption papers. If you approve. The Emperor took the documents, glanced at them, and then, without warning, tore them apart. No. The Duke's blood ran cold. Brother, what are you? I cannot allow her to be added to the royal registry. The Emperor's voice was firm, his expression unreadable. Then, with a sharp gesture, he slammed his hand against the table. What does Ahin think about this? The Duke froze. His son? From his perspective, this must not sit well with him. The Emperor's gaze was piercing. Why is he so indifferent to the fact that you suddenly have another child? We cannot discuss this without her. Bring the child here first. With that, the Emperor stood, smoothing his coat. We will talk before making any decisions. Then, without another word, he turned and left, his presence vanishing as quickly as it had filled the room. The Duke sat there stunned. The atmosphere in the Duke's study was tense, the weight of unspoken words filling the room. Ahin, upright, his sharp gaze fixed on his father. The news was unexpected. His Majesty had rejected adding Ariel to the royal registry. What was the reason? Ahin asked, his voice calm, but edged with curiosity. The Duke, standing before him, studied his son carefully before answering. His Majesty simply stated that your opinion matters most, he said. You are the eldest son and the only heir of the Cloudiff family. I should have asked sooner, but what do you think? Ahin's expression remained unreadable as he turned his head slightly, his eyes drifting toward Ariel. Would she truly become his sister? It was a strange thought. The conversation lingered in his mind, even as they traveled by carriage toward the imperial palace. The steady rhythm of the wheels against the stone roads matched the pace of his thoughts. His father sat across from him, waiting. Ahin exhaled, his arms folded. Even if I had objections, what could I do? He said at last. It's not as if we can return a child once she's born. The Duke baffled, but still watching his son closely. Ahin's voice lowered slightly, as if speaking more to himself than to his father. Besides, having a new sister doesn't threaten my position. There's no reason to be concerned. He paused, then added, almost begrudgingly, and to be honest, I've started growing attached to her. The Duke raised a brow, his lips curving into the faintest smirk. At this point, if we send her away, who else could possibly handle that wild horse? The Duke chuckled quietly, shaking his head. Not entirely honest with your feelings, are you? Later, the heavy palace doors swung open as the guards announced their arrival. The Grand Duke has arrived. The moment they stepped inside, Ahin expected the air to be heavy with formality, the weight of negotiations looming over them. Instead, what greeted them was a baffling scene. Oh my, how adorable as always, the Emperor cooed, reaching out to ruffle Ariel's hair. Ahin froze mid-step. His father stiffened beside him. A plate of orange tarts sat before them, half devoured. The Emperor, entirely unbothered by the situation, picked up another piece and held it toward Ariel. Here, Try this one too, he said with enthusiasm. The Emperor beamed. Then how about this cake? It has extra cream. Oh, and there's also walnut pie. Ahin's eye twitched. His father cleared his throat. Your Majesty. The Emperor waved a hand dismissively. Enough noise, I'm busy right now. He patted Ariel's head, looking thoroughly pleased. Ahin and the Duke exchanged incredulous glances. Busy? Doing what exactly? Weren't you going to ask Ahin something, Your Majesty? The Duke pressed, his voice controlled. The Emperor blinked, tilting his head. Ah, right. But Ahin isn't here, is he? Ahin's face remained impassive, though inside he could hardly believe what he was hearing. He had been standing there the entire time. His father inhaled sharply. Your Majesty, didn't I say we would discuss this while the child was present? The Emperor mused, already turning his attention away. Ahin's patience finally snapped. I've been here the whole time, Your Majesty. The Emperor paused mid-motion, his hand hovering over another pastry. Slowly, he turned back, blinking. Since when? Ahin's voice was flat. From the very start. The Emperor frowned slightly, gears turning in his mind. Now that I think about it, you were here. The Duke let out a long sigh. Before Ahin could react further, a voice chimed in from the side. Young lady, shall we go outside for some fresh air? Jane stood at the entrance, looking at Ariel with a patient smile. Why? Ariel asked, licking a stray crumb from her lip. The adults need to have a discussion, Jane said lightly. Let's go explore somewhere else. Ariel hesitated, glancing at the half-eaten tart in her hand, but eventually nodded and followed Jane out, into the gardens. Sunlight filtered through the trees, casting long shadows over the neatly trimmed hedges. Ariel sighed, stretching her arms as she thought, human food is really something else. There were just too many delicious things here. Even in a rush, she should have brought more sweets. As she mulled over her regrets, movement at the edge of the garden caught her eye. A boy ran past the hedges, quick and quiet. Ariel's instincts kicked in, and she ducked behind a bush. Who is that? She thought, peering through the leaves. There was something strangely familiar about him. Her brows furrowed as she tried to place the nagging feeling. Before she could think too hard about it, a sudden noise made her flinch. A small dog came racing, around the corner, its paws skidding on the stone path. Oh my, you were waiting for me? A servant cooed, scooping up the tiny creature. Did you miss me, little puppy? Ariel's eyes widened. A spark of recognition flickered in her mind. Her gaze snapped back to the boy, who was now walking past, completely unaware of her presence. And then it clicked. She shot up from her hiding spot. I remember now. You. Over there, puppy! The boy halted mid-step, his entire body going rigid. What? He stammered. Ariel blinked at him, unimpressed. And then, to her complete bewilderment, he started to cry. Why would you say something so terrible? He sniffled, rubbing his eyes. Ariel recoiled. Quiet. Why are you crying? He hiccuped between sobs. Calling someone a dog. That's so mean. Ariel ran a hand down her face, already regretting everything. Shh, be quiet, she hissed, looking around anxiously. If you have complaints, then speak properly. You have a mouth, don't you? This is your fault, came a sudden voice. Ariel turned sharply, startled. A second boy stood before her, identical to the first. Her brain momentarily short-circuited. This one looks just like him. She looked between them, utterly dumbfounded. Two identical puppies? Left puppy. Right puppy, she thought as she flicked her gaze between them. But then, a shock ran through her. Identical humans. Her heartbeat quickened. A memory, old, ancient, and whispered among the gods, resurfaced in her mind. Fabio. Her breath hitched. A monstrous god. A deity exiled for his overwhelming power. Fabio, the god of destruction, who wanted to fight against Acheron, the ruler of the gods. Fear gripped her. There is no place in this world where I could fight against him. She wanted to step back, to stay silent, to not provoke them. But then, wait. She straightened her back, her divine pride sparking to life. This was not about fear. This was a matter of honor. A smirk tugged at her lips as she took a bold step forward. Come at me, you bastards. A stunned silence filled the air. The crying boy hiccuped, his watery eyes going wide. She is quite an odd one, brother, he murmured, through sniffles. The other twin narrowed his eyes, scrutinizing her. Perhaps, he muttered. But this is the royal garden. We should confirm who she is first. He took a step forward, but before he could speak, Hey, Ariel, what are you doing? Here? A familiar voice rang from behind. Ariel's head whipped around. Relief flooded her chest. Without hesitation, she dashed toward him. Big brother, she cried, throwing herself into his arms. The twinsome both turned their attention, watching intently. Ariel clung to Ahin's sleeve. Fabio, Fabio, she blurted out. Ahin stiffened slightly. You mean the monster from mythology? He asked, his voice cautious. He started to dismiss the idea until his gaze fell upon the twins. A slow realization dawned on him. Ahin exhaled, resting a firm hand on Ariel's shoulder. Ah, I see. They are not Fabio Ariel, he murmured, his tone reassuring. Ariel, still gripping his sleeve, frowned. So those two aren't monsters? Ahin chuckled softly and patted her head. No, he said gently. They are the princes. Ariel blinked. The princes? Yes, His Majesty's sons, Ahin confirmed. Ariel turned back to the twins, still processing his words. But they have the same face. Ahin sighed. Of course. Prince Claude and Prince Elvire are twins. Elvire sniffled again, glancing at Claude, who kept his cold gaze locked onto Ariel. But before he could speak, inside the palace, another conversation was already unfolding. The Duke strode quickly after the Emperor, his tone tense with frustration. Your Majesty, you've heard Ahin's opinion. He agrees with adding Ariel to the royal family, so why? The Emperor didn't stop walking. I still believe you should not take in Ariel, he stated firmly. The Duke clenched his jaw. For your honor is as precious as life itself, the Emperor continued. A bastard child is out of the question. The Duke inhaled sharply. That's not the truth, so I don't mind. Besides, I already... No, the Emperor interrupted. That's not the point. His voice was sharp, decisive. It cannot be done. Finally, the Emperor turned, his eyes unreadable. The others don't know the details. Even if they don't say it to your face, they will judge you behind your back. The Duke remained silent, his fists tightening at his sides. We will discuss this again once the Empress returns from her retreat, the Emperor concluded before walking away. The Duke stood there, stunned. Huh? Why does the Empress need to... Before he could finish, a voice cut in from behind. Because that would make you The Duke and the Emperor turned. Claude stood there, his expression unreadable. A bastard, wouldn't it? A flicker of tension passed between them. A duchess? Say it properly. Ariel scoffed at the other twin Elvire. Calling yourself a duchess is an outrageous lie, Claude sneered. Hun, who had been watching quietly, finally spoke, Actually, it's not incorrect. Claude turned to him sharply. Soon she'll officially become a Claude family adoptee after all, Ahin added. Claude's lips curled. What does it matter? She's still a bastard either way. His gaze flickered toward Ariel. And yet, why is she acting so proud? Even if she's lucky enough to be adopted into a ducal family, her origins won't change. His fingers curled into a fist. I'll have to make the rankings clear. His expression darkened. To disrespect a prince like that. Even if she loses her head, she has no right to complain. Claude turned back toward Ahin. I won't overlook this today. I'll tell Father and have her punished. Ariel looked up. Father? She mumbled hesitantly. Claude frowned. Don't play dumb. Or do you really not know? Ariel hesitated. I mean, my father. My father is the emperor of this empire. Ah, so Dad then? She mused aloud. I have a dad too, Ariel added proudly, turning. Silence. The two princes stared at her, speechless. Your father is a duke. Our father is his majesty. The emperor, Elvire muttered, hiding behind his twin. Suddenly, a voice interrupted. What's going on here? The duke and the emperor entered the scene. Claude straightened. Father, you came at the perfect time. Look at her, he huffed. She had the audacity to call a prince a puppy. She must be punished immediately. The duke and Ahin turned toward Ariel. Claude smirked. Now she can't pretend not to know. You're finished, he thought. But then, the emperor smiled. I see, he mused. I've always thought my boys reminded me of something. His smile widened. And it's puppies. That's perfect. The twins were speechless. Claude's smirk shattered. Father... Meanwhile, in the carriage, the Duke and Ahin were still in shock over the rejection from His Majesty regarding Ariel's adoption. When suddenly, a striking idea hit Ahin. They could just ask the temple to sign off the adoption first, he stated. The Emperor would have to agree then. The Duke thought briefly before screaming, Ren, turn around! We're heading to the temple! At the heart of the capital, beneath the sacred spires of the temple, tension thickens like fog. The Grand Duke stands before the temple gates, a sealed imperial letter crumpled in his fist. His brother, the Emperor, has forbidden him from entering. I'm truly sorry, Your Highness, the priest says with a deep bow. But his words only fuel the Duke's unease. He's hiding something, the Duke thinks. This isn't about honor. There's another reason behind this. Something he's keeping from me. He exhales, trying to mask the storm building within. Tell His Majesty I can handle my own affairs. He need not worry about me, he says calmly. But the calm doesn't last. Without warning, the priests raise their swords, blocking his path. We deeply apologize, Your Highness. But as members of the Imperial Knights, the Emperor's orders take priority. Even for you, the Duke's voice hardens. You all... How dare you stand in my way? Not far from the confrontation, inside a nearby carriage, a strange sensation stirs. Ariel sleeps. At least she tries to. But her rest is shattered by something foul. A feeling both familiar and deeply revolting creeps into her bones. I know this feeling, she thinks. I remember this sensation. Her eyes fly open. Furious, she throws the door open and storms out of the carriage. The knights are still trying to reason with the Grand Duke, unaware of the girl sneaking past them. Ariel slips through the temple doors, drawn to the source of that terrible presence. And then, a voice echoes through the grand, silent hall. Well, well, what a surprise. There, standing like a perfectly painted portrait in the temple's glow, is Aranda, the goddess of beauty, love, and family. Elegant, smirking, infuriating. So it was you, Ariel hisses. Aranda. Aranda smiles lazily, eyes glittering. What? A coincidence. Long time no see, you clumsy little brat. I was wondering why I hadn't seen you lately. So, you've fallen to earth? Got bored and decided to come play? That's not it, Ariel snaps. I fell, without realizing it, you idiot. Idiot? Who are you calling an idiot, little brat? Aranda answers, then smacks Ariel lightly on the head. Ouch! Why did you hit me? Because a child, like you shouldn't act so cocky, Aranda says, rolling her eyes. So you just randomly fell from the heavens? She asks, amused. That's right. I woke up and suddenly found myself here. So you have no idea why. That's what I just said, isn't it? Ariel growls. Then her tone shifts, urgent, demanding. But anyway, this is perfect. Take me back to the heavens. Now. But Aranda doesn't move. She's clearly unbothered. I'm sorry. What did you say? She asked with mocking innocence. Don't pretend you didn't hear me, Ariel shouts. Take me back immediately. You don't have anything better to do you? Ariel pushes further, but Aranda's smile just deepens. And why should I? She says, turning with a glint in her eye. What do I gain from helping a worthless, arrogant brat like you? Ariel freezes. Wait, what? Besides, Aranda adds, tilting her head, is that how you ask someone for help? Ask for help? Ariel repeats, confused. That's right. You ask, just like how humans pray to us gods. Her voice softens, dripping with sarcasm. But I guess a god without followers like you wouldn't understand. Aranda steps closer. When you ask for help, you beg. Ariel's pride flares. She's telling me to imitate a human? This is infuriating, but Aranda's not done. Like this, she demonstrates, folding her hands together with mock grace. Please, great Aranda, I beg of you. Are you listening? Get on your knees. I was born destined to be king of the gods, Ariel thinks. I can't. But she inhales, forces herself to calm down, focus. Getting back to the heavens takes priority, grinding. Her teeth, she falls to her knees and mimics the posture. Please, great Aranda, she says, humiliated. Aranda stares down at her with a serene smile. Then comes the dagger. By the way, Ariel, do you really need to return to the heavens? Ariel's head snaps up. What? If you can't even use your divine powers properly, you're not much different from a human, are you? The words land like a slap. And even if you do go back, all you'll do is lock yourself in your room and wander around aimlessly, right? Ariel trembles with rage, unable to respond. Honestly? Aranda chuckles, turning away. I think staying in the human world would suit you better. Ariel screams after her, furious. Hey, don't be ridiculous. I did what you asked. Stop talking nonsense and... Oh, but watching the goddess Ariel kneel was so entertaining, Aranda says over her shoulder. Sorry, I never planned to help you in the first place. And then, just before disappearing into the glowing lights of the temple, she offers one final warning. For old time's sake, I'll give you a piece of advice. Make sure the humans don't find out what you are, a powerless god. Who knows what they might do to you? Ariel lunges, but it's too late. Aranda is gone. Silence falls. Ariel stands alone in the vast temple, fists clenched, body shaking. That woman, she growls. Does she really think I'd be grateful for such a warning? Her voice echoes, filled with fury. How dare she humiliate me? Me, the great Ariel. Once I return to the heavens, she's finished. The story so far, whispered by the little angels. The Grand Duke went to the imperial palace to get approval for adopting Ariel. But his older brother, the emperor, refused coldly. Absolutely not. Still, the Duke didn't give up. He turned to the temple. But even there, the emperor's influence had already taken hold. Meanwhile, Ariel returned home after being mocked by the goddess of beauty, love, and family Aranda. She couldn't say a word in response. How pitiful, the angels sighed. Wait a minute. So what happened to the adoption? Now, back at the Duke's mansion, Ariel sat in her room, fuming. That Aranda woman. Next time we meet, I won't let her off so easily, she thought angrily. From the corner, her maid appeared quietly. My lady, she said gently. Please have some snacks, the maid offered. Ariel's eyes lit up. Snacks, she said, brightening instantly. Later, in the imperial palace, tension rose. Your Majesty, please stop, the Grand Duke said. The emperor had lifted Ariel into the air again, clearly charmed by her. He turned, irritated. You should be the one to stop. Burning a gift from me? That's practically treason. Do you know how much effort it took to choose something for her? But the Duke stayed calm. I did it to protect my daughter from a greedy brother. His mind raced. So that's the real reason he won't approve the adoption? Because he wants Ariel himself? He remembered all the gifts, the ignored letters. He's obsessed, the Duke snapped. Why are you so obsessed with that child? She's not even your real daughter, the emperor shouted back. Ahin, standing nearby, froze. What? Ariel isn't my father's real daughter. He had always thought she was an illegitimate child, because they looked so alike. But now, my uncle is trying to adopt my sister. At first, he had seen her as an arrogant brat, but over time, he had grown quite fond of her, Ahin admits. That was when he stepped forward. Your Majesty, may I say something? Go ahead, the emperor answered. I've always believed my father to be an honest man, Ahin began. So when I heard he was taking in an illegitimate child, I was shocked. It could stain our family's name. But at the same time, it felt like something he would do. To face the past head on. That's what I respect about him. So, as a member of the Claudive family, I support his choice. The Grand Duke looked at his son, surprised and proud. The emperor nodded. You're right. My brother is a man who never runs from his duties. But then he hesitated. Still, this is the one thing I can never allow. So this still isn't enough, Ahin thought. I have no choice but to use my last resort. Either way, he said firmly, you'll never be able to adopt Ariel. The emperor blinked. Why? For what reason? Because the princes would never approve, Ahin said. The emperor staggered back in shock. You once asked me sincerely if I could accept Ariel as family, Ahin continued. If that's the kind of ruler you are, then surely you'll respect the feelings of your sons too. The emperor dropped to his knees, overwhelmed. They're complete opposites. But what a clever child, he thought, tears in his eyes. The Grand Duke smiled. To himself, I'm glad he's my son. At that moment, a servant rushed in. Your Majesty, the Empress has returned. Everyone turned. What? The Empress? She entered with calm grace. You sent me so many letters asking to talk. There's nothing more important than your health. I wanted to speak slowly, but don't worry, I've recovered. Ariel, who had been eating cake nearby, looked up. That woman. She's surrounded by the aura of Betho, the god of death. At this rate, she doesn't have much time left. Then the Empress approached. So, this is the girl? She said warmly. and hugged Ariel. "How adorable. She looks just like your Majesty." She smiled and held out a strange fruit. "I heard you like sweets. Here, try this." Ariel took a bite. Her eyes widened. "This taste. It's too delicious. What is this?" "It's called bee-love," the Empress replied. "It only grows in a region called Piranha, my homeland." "Wait, so I can only eat this if she's around?" Ariel realized, suddenly serious. "I must absolutely keep this woman alive," she thought. Then she grabbed the Empress's dress and without hesitation declared, "I've decided. I will stay with this person." Everyone was stunned. The Grand Duke, Hin, even the Emperor, whose eyes suddenly sparkled with excitement. Once, again, Ariel had turned everything upside down in the Imperial Palace. We open in darkness. A faint wind stirs, and with it, death. Beitho, the Shinigami. No one knows when he appears, only that when he does, the world holds its breath. He doesn't rush. He doesn't chase. He simply comes. When your time is up. Cold, patient, and silent, he steps between realms, untouched by fear or mercy. And now, he's here. Meanwhile, back at the Imperial Palace, in a softly lit room, Ariel stands beside the Empress. "Ariel, are you sure about this?" the Empress asks gently. Ariel turns her head. We see them together, preparing for bed. "How many times do I have to say I'm fine?" Ariel answers with calm defiance, but in her thoughts, a quiet smile forms. "No matter how strong Beitho is, I have a secret weapon." "Come on, lie down already," she says, glancing at the Empress, who still stands awkwardly at the edge of the bed, hesitant. "My illness isn't contagious, but I still worry," the Empress murmurs. "What if my sickly energy affects the child?" She lowers herself beside Ariel. "It's been so long since I last had someone by my side while sleeping, and now it's such a small, adorable child." "But you have the twins," Ariel thinks. "That's true," the Empress replies quietly. "But they're not close to me, because I couldn't be there for them." "Why not?" "Because of my illness. When I was first diagnosed, I left the palace without a word. I didn't want to burden my husband or my children. But all that time alone in retreat, I realized two things. I don't have much time left. And I am so unbearably lonely." She pauses. Her voice drops. "I came back, but 4 years had passed. For them, I had vanished." Then she catches herself. A faint laugh. "Ah, what a dull story. I should have sung you a lullaby instead. When I finally reunited with the children I longed to see," she remembers, "they looked at me with such troubled expressions. And I didn't know what to do. But at least tonight I'm not alone anymore. Morning breaks in the palace gardens." "Hey, Claude," Elvire whispers. "What if Mother dies?" "What?" Claude blinks, startled. "Don't be ridiculous. Why would Mother die?" "The servants, they said her condition isn't getting better." Elvire's voice cracks. Claude clenches his fists. "Who said that? Who's spreading that garbage? Tell me so I can make them pay." Behind a nearby bush, Ariel crouches low, watching them, silently. She said they weren't close to her, Ariel thinks. But she's wrong. They care. A lot. The leaves rustle. The twins whip their heads around. "Wait, how long have you been standing there?" Ariel steps out, expression blank. "Why so noisy? You think it's okay to eavesdrop on the royal princes?" Claude barks. "Just because you spent one night here, you think you can act like you own the place?" "What are you talking about?" Ariel snaps. "I just happened to hear it, and where I walk is none of your concern." She lifts a single finger, unafraid, unbothered. "You insolent little. What did you just say?" "Arrogant brat. Just because our father showed you a little kindness, don't let it go to your head. Then, grr." Claude's stomach growls, loud, unavoidable. His face flushes. Terrible timing. I skipped dinner yesterday. I just couldn't eat. Not after seeing how pale Mother looked. Ariel holds out her hand. "In it, a cookie. Here, eat this." Claude blinks. "A cookie? I'm giving you part of my precious stash. Be grateful. I didn't ask for it. There's plenty of those around." "Is that so?" Ariel pulls it back. "Then I'll eat it myself." She turns away, muttering. I had no intention of sharing it anyway. The twins stare, confused, intrigued. This girl, she's something else. Claude lowers his voice. "I don't have an appetite anyway. How could I, when Mother is so sick?" "She's not going to die," Ariel says suddenly. Claude jerks his head up. "How do you know that?" "There's Belova," Ariel replies with a mysterious smile. "As long as there's Belovy, she'll live." "Belove?" Claude echoes. "You mean the fruit?" "Exactly." Ariel grins. "You actually know about it? Not bad." She stretches. "As long as I don't get tired of eating it." Then her expression freezes. Her head turns sharply. "It's here." She bolts. "Beitho!" The twins blink. "Beitho?" Back inside the palace, the air has shifted. Servants whisper. Tension creeps through the halls. Ariel walks quickly past a tower wolf. So it's finally happening, she thinks. He's here. Inside the chamber, the empress lies still in her bed. Above her, cloaked in darkness, silent as death itself, stands Beitho. The room seems frozen in time, but just as he begins to move, "Beitho," Ariel says coldly, stepping into the room. Her voice cuts like steel. "Get away from that woman." He turns, slowly. His gaze meets hers, and death pauses. "Step away from that woman," she commands, her voice slicing through the still air. Beitho turns, clearly surprised to see her. Ariel takes an involuntary step back. His entire being is shrouded in black, like the night itself had taken human form. Creepy. But she can't let herself falter. "Not now," I said. "Leave her soul," she says again, firmer this time. Beitho doesn't respond. He turns back to the empress. "You're ignoring me?" She gasps, her frustration bubbling to the surface. "I figured this might happen, so I came prepared." Her eyes flash. "Beitho, listen up. I know what you did 197 years ago." Beitho freezes mid-motion. "What?" "Let's take this outside," she says coolly. "We need to talk." A moment later, they're standing in the imperial garden. Moonlight dances on the leaves, but the tension is thick. "You dragged me all the way here just to spout nonsense?" Beitho growls, towering over her. Ariel doesn't waver. "If that's what you think, then why did you follow me?" Beitho pauses. "Because I was curious." She smiles knowingly. "You better think carefully about your next move. Whether I stay quiet about your little secret depends entirely on you." She leans in. "The fact that 197 years ago, you helped the monster Fabio escape, the same one who turned on Acheron, king of the gods." Beitho's eyes widen. "How do you know that? No one saw me." Ariel lifts her chin proudly. "That's thanks to my special ability, phantom vision. Unlike divine power, it shows me moments from the past or future. Randomly, day or night. I can't control it, but I see what others can't." She doesn't tell him everything, of course. Just enough. I'm destined to be king of the gods. I see all, she says with regal confidence. Betho narrows his eyes. So that's why Aranda finds you so damn irritating. Still, he's sweating now, internally panicking. He needs to shut her up. Fine, he mutters. What do you want? Simple, Ariel replies with a smirk. Don't take the Empress's soul. Betho stares at her, dumbfounded. You're blackmailing me over a human? She's not just any human, Ariel says, dreamily picturing the Empress's stash of delicious fruit. She's valuable. She feeds me well. Betho groans. You're such a pain in the ass. But finally he gives in. I won't take her life. Ariel beams. And the incident from 197 years ago? Got it. I'll keep your secret. As Betho vanishes into the night, he mutters, Why do I feel like I just got scammed? I won't forget this debt, Ariel calls after him cheerfully. Days later, Ariel storms into the Empress's chamber. Her heart sinks. Why is she still this sick? Her body still trembling on the brink of death. Was she tricked? Hey, Betho! She yells toward the sky. Get out here! You owe me an explanation! Before she can shout again, Betho appears, clamping a hand over her mouth. Our deal is done, he growls. Ariel bites his hand. Hard. You're the one who needs to explain. I told you to save her. So why is she still dying? Betho sighs, exasperated. Healing diseases isn't my job. I collect souls, not cure bodies. Ariel's jaw drops. Then whose responsibility is it? If you want someone healed, ask the god of medicine. Ariel pauses. Then a light bulb moment. Well then, she says with a dazzling smile, you can at least go fetch him for me, right? Betho stares at her, defeated. He mutters under his breath, I really got mixed up with the biggest pain in the divine realm. In the polished halls of the imperial palace, Ariel barely has time to breathe before a voice cuts through the air, amused and unmistakably familiar. Well, so the rumors were true, the man says, eyes gleaming with mischief. The little goddess really did fall into the human world. Ariel sighs. Pavelo, she mutters. The god of medicine grins, standing casually. Arande told me everything. Let me guess. She stirred the pot again, didn't she? You're as talkative as ever, she replies dryly. What can I say? He shrugs. It's been centuries. I missed your grumpy face. But Pavelo hadn't just come to catch up. He was curious. After all, for Beto, the ever-silent, ever-guarded Beto, to come ask him for help. That was worth investigating. So, he says, his tone turning playful. You want me to heal a human woman? She's not just a woman, Ariel says, firm and focused. And I'm not asking you for much, just once. Just lend me your power. Pavelo tilts his head, pretending to weigh the decision like it's a game. And why would I do that? Ariel stares at him, caught off guard. He smiles wider. All right, I'll do it, but I want something in return. Ariel narrows her eyes. Tell me Beto's weakness, Pavelo says, the gleam in his eye downright wicked. A real one. The kind you could blackmail a god with. She doesn't hesitate. Fine. It's from 197 years ago. Moments later, in the palace gardens, Ariel practically skips toward an enormous stone buried in a patch of grass. Beto follows, arms crossed, clearly regretting every decision that led him here. This is it, she says excitedly. Pavelo said the hesiu grass grows in the cracks of old rocks. It's rare and powerful. Beto crouches down, squinting. There's one sprouting, but it's wedged deep in the back. Perfect, she beams. Now go and get it. Beto blinks. Me? Yes, you. I'm too short, and you've got those long limbs for a reason, right? The queen doesn't have all day. Grumbling under his breath, Beto moves toward the rock. What did I get myself into? Inside the palace chambers, the air is heavy. The empress lies motionless in her bed, her skin pale, breath shallow. The emperor sits beside her, his voice barely more than a whisper. Juliet, please don't leave me. Just then, the door creaks open. Ariel steps in, dirt on her dress, a single strand of Hessu grass in her hand. She walks straight to the emperor and holds it out. Take it! The court physician rushes over, eyes wide. That herb, it's Hessu. With this we might just have a chance. Days pass, and then, light. The palace erupts into joy. Laughter echoes through the marble halls. The emperor, overwhelmed, scoops Ariel into his arms and spins her once in a circle. You saved her, he says, voice thick with emotion. I owe you everything. You deserve a reward worthy of the heavens. He smiles. I'll give you my family name. But before his words can settle, a chill cuts through the warmth. The Duke enters. His eyes are sharp. His presence stops the celebration in its tracks. That's quite the reward, he says. But I believe you're overstepping. The emperor turns to him confused. I only came to take my daughter home, the Duke continues coldly. Wait, the emperor tries. The queen, the princes, even they accept her now. The Duke raises a brow. So you're saying your brother now has 2 children? He says, voice razor sharp. And what of the crown prince, still fighting at the border? Silence falls. The emperor looks stricken. I'm asking you, the Duke says quietly. Don't push this any further. That evening, in the quiet of the carriage, Ariel rests her head on Ren's shoulder, fast asleep. Her breath is soft, her face peaceful. But across from her, the Duke stares out the window, thoughtful. Once we return, summon the knights. Order, he says. Ren blinks. The knights? Why? The Duke's voice is low. The emperor may not be finished. We'll post a guard around Ariel, just in case. Ren glances down at the sleeping girl. What on earth is going on inside the Grand Duke's head? Since when did he care this much for a child?